Good morning, afternoon and evening, whatever the time of the day it is that you're now switching on. Right, this week's work. It's pretty much defined on what I'm doing. Those ammo boxes cannot go in the bag. It's going to cost a fortune to wire them in, and I don't like having all that length of wire to do the things that it's got to do. So I have already measured up. One definitely will fit in there nicely. If I move this to here and then run a pipe across and get it up to about that in height, then we can still operate that, and then we should be able to fit the other one in roughly around this area here. But we are going to have to make some kind of easy removal so I can access the oil and the pulleys and everything else. So that's job number one. Job number two is Sunday, tomorrow. Monday there's a plan of having a hose pipe ban, which means I'm not going to be able to run that power washer. So I'm going to jump ahead on this one. I'm going to go and get my sand from B&Q tomorrow, which is dried sand, and I'm going to sandblast that engine bay out and get it clean. Once I've got that done, then Monday we can finish the ammo box, plug up them holes that I made, see if there's a chance in getting a piece of angle run across there for a drain, and then we can go down and get some paint from somewhere and paint all the bulkhead up. So we've got to strip all the rubbish off that's in the way that we're not going to be using anymore, and paint everything up. Once we've painted that all up, we'll go about fitting the brake servo unit back in. I mean, we just got to enlarge them holes, and it is pretty damn close. You see that clevis there? Look, it's pretty blinking close to where it needs to go, so hopefully we won't have too much trouble with that. I'm hoping. So that is, at the moment, the way things are being planned out. Right, power washed. Started at 3 o'clock, finished at exactly 3:30. I'm happy enough with that. Yeah, that's a lot cleaner than it was. Morning, 10:30, Monday. As you know, I power washed this yesterday on the basis that there might be a hosepipe ban today. There's no hosepipe ban. I have no idea what area has got it, but it definitely isn't Suffolk area. So, or East Anglia for that matter. I don't know. Not bothered. One job is done, I ain't got to worry about. So, next is to get these two boxes fitted and then removed. So one is going here. I have to move that because the other one's going here. Once we've got those done, I then got to plug weld all the holes that I can find. There's quite a few. Hoover up some of the sand that seems to have found its way in. I mean, I keep washing this out and it just keeps dropping. It must be stuck in that bonnet somewhere. Or I have to get an airline, blow it all out. Then we can look at doing some paint. Okay, first bracket is in, as you can see down there. That's a much better position, isn't it? Only problem is the hole is now over there, and the reason for that is the handle originally was going to be here, and I can't access the handle. So I can flip, and hopefully we can still get, because I can still manoeuvre this around. There you go. So hopefully I can still get that lid off and access everything I need to. In fact, we'll do a test run on that in a minute. This hose was all I could find at the time. Now this hose is making sense with the curves because of the box. So it looks like it was meant to be, apart from that letting it down. You know, beggars can't be choosers. Don't know how well that'll hold, but we'll see. Right, so we've got to make up the final bracket for the other side, and then we've got to move that to there. We've got to find a longer hose for that as well. We've got to move this big hose here around a bit. It's got to still what's it around it. That's not going to be an easy thing, so we'll probably end up having to extend that somehow. I don't know how I'm going to do it because I don't want to restrict it. we'll worry about that later. There we go, that's the time. First bracket is in. Right, second bracket now in. So now I've got to undo the bottle, and I've got to shift that mechanism there over to here somehow, and I mean, I don't have to. I can actually put that up on the wall, the bulkhead or something somewhere, but I wanted to keep all the hoses as close together as possible. But we have hit a small problem on that idea now, see? So I think we're going to have to go on a water pump somewhere, so maybe a bracket here and nut and bolt job on it. I don't know, we'll see. But that has got to come off, and it has got to be relocated somewhere. Where's time?
It's 5:20 to 2, dear.
Now fully in. Okay, one's a little bit too close to the engine for my liking. There's not a lot I can do about that. We'll just have to monitor and see what goes on. That one's done. Relay box, fuse box, way too big for the job. It's the only ones I had lying around. If I had a smaller box for this, I would have used it, but there isn't one. So we've got to wire it all up, obviously, and make up a diagram once we've got everything and lay it in there. The same with this one. Each relay is going to be marked 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 all the way along, and inside there will be a laminated typo of what's what. So we should have enough to run 90% of these electrics. If that becomes a problem, then we'll have to move it. The other place is over there, but I've got other things to go over there, so that fuse box may have to go completely, and we may have to put a few fuse boxes up on the bulkhead instead, which is not what I wanted to do. Can't be helped. Okay, right, so that's the holes plugged up around there, tidied up there as best as I can. Before I forget, that's the time. Okay, just after dinner I put the DA over this, did it in the shed. Took all of about, what, 10 minutes. Door is shut, for the record. We are now ready for the Boston green. Now you watch the reddy flies fall on that when I put paint on it. And these boxes, even though I wanted to leave them in the military standard colours, because I've welded so much to them that the paint was just pretty much destroyed. So unfortunately the little bit of history that was in them is now gone, and I really wanted to keep that bit of history on them. Can't be helped, but hey, it works. So that is Boston green, or what's left of it. About 10 in the morning, and I've moved to the Sahara Desert. Nah, I just need some shade, man. That's hot. I get hot under here. Right, today we're just going to clean up all the sand, all the burny bits that I did yesterday, and then we'll get some paint out and we'll paint this all up. I reckon we'll put that green on first, let that dry off. Then I reckon I'll have to put some hammerite on the chassis, because I know I'll drip it everywhere. A bit concerned about this. I need to somehow make sure I don't cover this area, but to be honest with you, I don't think it's going to be possible. So we'll just have to see how we end up. Unfortunately, I can't remove it. So we'll do the grinding now. Give this one more airline, and then we'll hoover what we can't get rid of, because obviously I can't get rid of it. The airline don't work first time. Okay, that's the time. Paint is finished. It's all under there now. Show you later when it's dry. Shouldn't take long. Cut the hose tops. Didn't have enough to do that bloody door. I wasted half of it this morning because the gun decided it weren't going to work. So what was going to go on here ended up on the floor, unfortunately. So we'll have to do a light rub down and probably roll that on. Okay, Wednesday, tank has come. Damn thing's tiny. I mean, that's the sort of size of tank I'd expect to see in a Mini. I'm running a 4 litre V8 for crying out loud. So what we're talking, I reckon, what, 5, 6 at a push jerry cans, small green jerry cans of space. I mean, don't get me wrong, that'll get me somewhere, but not far. So what I'm going to do, when I mount this in the back that way up, and I'm not going to do away, I'm going to do away with that because that sits halfway up inside for some weird reason. We've got a plate here. I'll put a sender unit in there and a pipe going to the bottom there. But as it's stainless steel, you see, I can wash it out and I can weld on it even after it's had fuel in. So it will go in the truck as far forward as I can get it, so I've got the biggest gap at the back. And when I can find something stainless steel that can be welded on the back to extend it, I will, because all I'll do is I'll cut 4 holes out along there, and all the rest of it. And I'll weld another box on the back if I can find one. So it will do for now. As I have room for other things to go behind it as well. It's all right for what it is. It will fit. It will go in. Okay, it's 11:45, and I've just put this on. All of about 10 minutes to took. So I'm now letting that dry off. Now that looks proper. It's got a darker colour to it. Before, I think I over thinned it. I have got some reaction going on over there. I don't know what that's all about. So you've got to bear in mind also, parts that are going on this are black. So the bit for the wheel is black, the window frames are black, the part that's going to go in here eventually, black. I just wanted to see if I was picking the right colours, and I think I am. I think it's going to work. I still think I ought to do matte black along there, not like a matte along that line there, and the bonnet as well. Satin black wheel arches. I might paint this part green, but do that bit black to match that bit. So another 35 quid later. Well, that was actually 15 to do that because I used half a can, and if you look closely you can see where I've been with the gun. It's a bit of a hit and miss affair this. I watered it down as well deliberately because I didn't want that coarse look that I got on that stuff over there, and it came out okay. I'm happy enough with that. So I was going to put some camo in there just to sort of mix it up a bit, you know. I don't think we're going to need it. I was going to go for a really light rusty brown or a darker green in my head earlier when I was putting it on, so I don't think we need it. Works for me. I might get a rattle can made up just so I can get that colour a little bit more even, but that's at the worst. We'll see what happens. Right, moving on. We've now got to venture in that engine bay. Alright, well it is 5 to 3 and I was doing the brakes. I'm having a lot of aggro with them. For starters, the holes didn't line up properly. I don't know how I managed to cock that up, but I did. So what I've discovered is the holes to the pedal don't match up to the servo. Basically that arm is just too long, so I cut the clevis down, re-drilled, didn't work. I've had to re-weld it back up. Now don't get all can't use that. That's, I know, I'm going to remake that. I'm going to get a connecting nut and some thicker steel and eventually rebuild that completely, but I can't cut this down. It wouldn't be safe to do that. I could hack into that with more thread, but I'm not going to do that either. I'm not really sure what's what here, so the only thing I can really do is extend this, because that hole, this, when it's butted up into the bulkhead, this is about 3 centimeters away from where it needs to go. The hole matches up perfectly if this was shorter. I tell you, it's muggy as hell. Stinking headache. Anyway, there you go. One clevis. Washer each side, drilled through, piece of box steel, trimmed, connecting nut screwed on, hammered it inside So the box steel has shaped itself around that, and that's pretty much the best my head can come up with. I don't have anything else. So let's see if it all fits, shall we? Oh yeah, my head's killing me. So I'm calling it a day. I've got to get somebody to push down on that, and I need to put the grinder in that bit just to clear a little bit more of that muck out of the way. What's happening is, it's as you can see, it's hitting, and it's working the way I planned. So I could take it all off, go back in the shed, but I'm honest with you, this day is really muggy, and it's given me a hell of a skull ache. I was going to pack up because I was worried about making a noise. Oh dear. Well, for the record, it ain't me this time. Anyway, I've just unbolted that. I'm going to take that in the shed. It's due to rain tomorrow. So now I can deal with it. No, he still ain't done. Oh dear, I thought that's funny, that. So yeah, my headache's gone. It took a few hours for that sucker to go out taking pills. Once we get that put in properly tomorrow, then get this oil sorted out, so I might shoot down the yard and get some more hose. I also want to put some paint on the chassis, but we've got rain tomorrow and it looked like a big old cloud coming over, so I reckon we've got it for most of the day. Probably thunder as well, we'll go with it. Okay, new day, Thursday. It's raining. They did say that. We've got a big old cloud passing over East Anglia at the moment, and that will probably be here for the whole day, so it's on and off rain. I'm not that bothered about the rain, but I don't want water in the engine bay because there's a lot of areas in that engine that are open to the elements. So I came in here into my rather tidy shed, and I've managed to ground that back enough. I mean, it's a tatty clevis, but it works, you know. I'm happy about that. So we are going to put that back in. I keep debating whether I should wire brush that back while I'm sitting around, but guess what? I have run out of black paint, so I cannot. I think I am on my last. Yeah, that's empty. I have hammerite. I've got a load of scrap paint in there, but nothing that will be of any use to me, I'm afraid. Edge primer. I've got some Cobra left, but I don't want to waste that on that, so nope. It'll have to go back in as is, and I'll have to find some kind of brush on paint that's better than hammerite. In fact, what I might do is mask up the entire area. Do you know what? I'll probably have to take the damn thing out again, let's be honest about it. Okay, there's three things that worry me about this. The first one is the lean. I don't know what went wrong, but something did. That's the first thing. The second thing is when I put the master cylinder back on, I could feel the pistons closing. It wasn't loose. Never did that before. And when I was putting the pedal in, you see, I put that in its neutral position, and that's the only way I can describe it. Basically, look how loose that is. And at that point, rock solid. And the other thing that worries me is the bolt that runs through there. It's not got a shank on it, so the thread is rubbing. So that's got to be changed at some point for a high tensile steel bolt with a shank. But other than that, and scruffy lines, it is back in. I reckon these two lines are going to have to be replaced because I can't seem to get that to set where I need it to set. I think what I need to do next is just leave that alone, put a ratchet on the wheels and just see if I can physically move this so that the brakes don't bind. If the brakes are not binding, then we're good to go. Simple solution. In fact, I'll put somebody to push on the pedal while I'm pushing it back up if I can. So we'll see where we are on that. I think the next thing to do is to get that clutch sorted out. That tilt on that master cylinder is really bugging me. Somewhere along the line I managed to cut that pipe wrong. Okay, I have no idea if this is going to work. The clutch is in, but I haven't plumbed it up yet. I've altered the length of that arm because it's a completely different setup to what it was before. So I've now reduced that size. I've screwed the rose joint in place, locked it in, and I've wound this out as far as I can wind it to get some preload on this. They're a bit of a nuisance and I may have to wind it out further, but what I'm worried about is winding it too far because I've cut it down and not having anything left, and it is catching. There's that pings the spring because I've got the rose joint on the upper hole instead of the smaller hole. If you look here, I don't know if you can see that there's a hole there, there's a hole there. I've got that one set on the upper one because when you press it down it drops at level, and the problem with having it on the bottom one is when you drop it down it's hitting the washer. The shaft actually rubs the washer that's inside. There's a retaining spring clip in the washer. I've drilled that washer out to account for the misalignment on that. There's not a lot I can do with it. It's going to be one of them things of plumbing it in and seeing if it work. I really could do with a clevis on that now. I took that off and threw it, so if I order another one of these at a later date, it'll hopefully come with a clevis, and then I can bolt that in. If it doesn't, I'll have to make one. Bit of a pain in the butt really, but there's nothing else I can do about that. So okay, yep, that will do it. Rust. Do you know what? This hasn't been on the road, if my memory serves me correctly, that was brand new 3 years ago. Maybe a little bit longer, but not by a lot. That's what old brake fluid does. Worn out, non-used brake fluid. So if that one's on its way out, probably that one is as well. Although when I pulled that apart I didn't see any evidence of rust accumulation. It was just in this one. See the piston is stuck halfway down. So there you go. Just as well I've ordered a new one, innit? I thought to myself, in anticipation of all of this, it would just be false economy to try and repair that. So yeah, we've got a new one on order. Friday. Post out last night on Facebook and sent it out to a few friends. This has me baffled. High powered water pump of some description, washer pump, spike, that's a holding spike, so that slots into something, so when it's bolted in it sits like that and then bolts to the bulkhead or something like that, right? Screw lid, some daft piece of plastic that you can't see through. I'm pretty sure there is meant to be a clear one on that, and I don't have a clue what it is. I think it's a washer bottle with a turbo sprayer for an intercooler. That's what I think it is, but I can't be certain. Anyone's got any suggestions, let me know. I'd really like to know. This came in a job lot of Subaru Impreza parts. There was loads of bits and bobs, including an engine actually, and that is where that come from. Whether it's part of that or not, I couldn't say because I just don't know. That has me baffled. So I'm going to use this for a washer bottle, but I'm going to get a blank for that. Blank that over, cable tie that back so it can't move. Like so. And that's the best that's going to get. And then we need to find connectors for that and then put a white hose on that and send that up to the roof where the washers are going to be. And then this, I'm going to try and find, actually I've got it, my sandblaster. I will clamp a clear piece of pipe on that. That way we can see what water level we have inside. That's the best I can do with this one. We also have an expansion bottle. I'm sure he gave me another one, a larger one, but I can't find it. I'm almost certain he gave me a bigger one, but no. Where did I put the one I have got? Oh, for flipping hell's sake. Where did I put it? Pulled it out of here yesterday, I'm sure I did. Where did I put it? Where did I put it? I can't remember. Because I was going to polish it all up. But I don't think it's big enough. This is a... Well, I say it ain't big enough. I mean, the brass ones that were in the old Land Rover V8s weren't that big, to be honest. So maybe it is big enough. When I can find it. There it is. Here we go. Expansion bottle. I have this. So this has all got to be cleaned up. I have that. Bracket on the side so we can fix it. And we've got two outlets. We've got a big one and we've got a little one and nothing else. So there's my windscreen washers. Quite a lot there. So what else has got to go in this engine bay? It's a pity I didn't have an aluminium one of these, really. Never mind. We can always find one later. So what am I doing today? Right, it's quite simple, really. Subject to the heat, that is. I'm going to get that battery to fit in that tank. The problem is I've measured it. I was hoping to be able to cut that straight down and then slot it in that way. Not going to happen. We're 1/2 centimetre out. That's too big for that container. So what I'm going to have to do instead is I'm going to have to cut it down there and then cut the lid off and then weld the back in place and then grind it back smooth. And then the flaps here will have to be bolted onto a bracket that will be put in here, there and there, and it will rest on that and should be strong enough. A leg will come off, go down here as well. And as I said to you before, we've got to make up the cupboard here, but that's something for later. We don't need to be doing that yet. That could be made out of wood, to be honest, if need be. Just to put my recovery stuff in, if I can get it all in there. Once I've got that done today, if I've got enough time, we'll get that bottle sorted out. And then subject to time again, either today or tomorrow, we'll try and find a locating point for these two bottles, that one and that one up there. I need to polish them both up. So I need to clean them up, get the polishing mop out and spend 1/2 hour in each one getting them all nice and shiny again. There's no more painting to be done inside there apart from hand brush. And that's the other thing I've got to do, actually. Speaking of hand brush, we've got to get some hammerite. That's going to be my last job, I think, where I've oversprayed green and there's a lot of it. I need to hammerite that chassis back up on top to get it clean. I actually do want to bedline the chassis, but between you and me, I don't think we're going to be able to do it. I don't think we're going to be able to get the spray gun to work. I just don't think it'll happen. There's a lot of bare metal underneath this as well on the cab, so we've got to spray something under there. I'm just not quite sure how I'm going to do it. Okay. Okay. That's the tank I'm cutting up. It's 2 hours later. I know. What have I been doing? Clearing a bleeding space. And yeah, I know. If I cleared up as I go along, I wouldn't have to do it. I get it. Alright, I can't hear you. You're behind the TV. So it's done. I've got enough room now to put this on the bench and work my way round and cut the thing and grind it and weld it and all the other stuff that's got to be done. There was a lot of rubbish behind here. Got rid of most of it, just not all of it. Cardboard, I've got to clear that because it's flammable and it's hot weather now. So I've got rid of as much as I can deal with. Sandblasters over here, I've got to connect it up to that one eventually. Weld the two together or rivet a plate between. The lathe components are up there out of the way. I've actually got to chase up this engineering shop because I ain't heard from them. The rod that goes through here. I was going to flog this, but I've decided I'm going to keep it. It's useful because I do also do a lot of modelling, or have been known to do a lot of modelling over the years. When I did my boat building course, I learned how to build a boat. But I've been doing model versions of them on and off. The only problem is people won't pay the money that they cost to build. You know, the amount of time you put into them. You could charge £1,000 for a model boat made of wood with all the little close details, but it could take anything up to 6 months to build. You know what I'm saying? And people just won't pay that. So it's not something I wanted to get into. It just ended up a hobby, really. I built a couple. I got one in the house, one I got rid of years ago, years and years ago, and somewhere up there is a replica of a boat called the Pioneer, which was moored at Brightlingsea a few years back. The bloke sent me some photos, but they were photos of him and other people, and I needed photos of the boat. I wasn't interested in them, it was the boat I wanted, because I needed the deck details. I got the hull details right because I found line drawings online, and I duplicated that and built everything, and that came out rather good. You want to see it, don't you? Thought you might say that. So there you go. That is, unfortunately, bowsprit has snapped. That is 3 years of boat building at Lowestoft College, where I was able to learn how to read line drawings, and it's all made out of planks, little tiny planks. Every single piece is a steamed piece of oak that has been cut and bent and glued in the true traditions of boat building. These were fishing boats originally, and I believe they were used down Cornwall way, roughly around that area. And I can't remember the proper name for this, but there is a boat called the Pioneer down at Brightlingsea, as I said earlier, and very similar to this. The only problem is I ain't got the details of the deck, because I was actually trying to duplicate the Pioneer. Go and have a look online if you're interested in boating. It has a fascinating story, because the Pioneer was left to rot in the mud for nearly 100 years, and this guy, this enthusiast, knew it as a child. I may have the details wrong on that, but I know it was in the mud, and he had a crane pull it out, and then it got restored. Literally all that was left was the keel and a few frames down here. The rest that was above water just rotted away and disappeared, and they have literally rebuilt it. And I thought, when I saw that in the magazine, the story behind it, I fell in love with the story, to be honest. This was when I was right into boats, so I decided I wanted to build one, and this is what I came up with. There must be about 4 months work in that, at least. That's about 2.5 foot long, with the bowsprit nearly 3 foot long. After I built it, I suddenly realised, where the hell am I going to put it? I've even floated it on water, and it sits perfectly, absolutely perfectly in the water, the way they do on the ocean. I managed to get the framework, because I built separate frames inside, and then I ripped them all out and built the deck after, and I really did get it quite good. I love it, but that's been sitting for over 10 years now. I've done nothing to it. So you've got little brake lines that I flattened out, used them for brasses, and we've got cleats up the front here, again brake lines flattened out, and again brake lines for the mast stays. The mast is up there somewhere, that slots in there, and I built it with the intentions of putting a motor in it so it could be floated and motored properly. But I believe it might have been a Dunkirk boat, don't quote me on that as well. I say nearly 100 years, but I don't know how long it was in the water for. Something in my head when I first spoke said 100 years, but it might not have been. It might have been abandoned shortly after the war, but I could have sworn they said it was left in the early 1900s. So I don't know the full history on it. I'm sure I read somewhere it was a Dunkirk boat, but it could have been another one very similar to this that found its way over there. So yeah, that's the other little talent I have. So that lathe I got would be ideal for knocking up cannons and stuff like that for similar style boats, but they are so time consuming, it's ridiculous. You need a steam box for starters. You need to have the line drawings, and the line drawings are so easy to understand when you know how to do it, because on a line drawing you've got the shapes of every angle, and then you've got the length shapes, and it's like reading a map, and you literally blow it up or you draw it out onto a board and then you bend the wood to those exact shapes and then you start building it all up, and that's what you get. Whoever invented the line drawing was genius, because that came out exactly as it was meant to. There you go. The pity the bowsprit snapped. There's the mast, well, there's a bit of the mast anyway. There you go, first cut. Next one, down, down, and then all the way along, and then cut that piece out and we'll weld that in to make up the case. I was going to cut slits and fold the bottom up, but no, got that in the way there, so, and that is really close to where it don't want to be. It's no fuel tank. Unfortunately, I wasn't convinced it wouldn't rust on me, so I chose not to use it. I mean, it has got some sort of coating in there, but it was used for oil originally, hydraulic oil, so it didn't need to be rust treated. So I don't know what that stuff is in there. It was a nightmare to get rid of in the other one, and not really having much. See, I don't have the petrol to melt that, you see. Right, that's the tank completely cut up. So now, that is where there was a hole, that thing there that completely rusted up. I don't even know if it was welded or soldered. Pain in the ass to get out all the same, but it's left me with that a little bit. Can't be helped. Use it as a drain, just in case battery acid pour out somewhere, you know. So now we've got to clean up, and then we've got to weld that plate onto that back area there. Okay, box is complete. Well, about as complete as it's going to be. I've got to grind down some of those nasty edges, and now I've got to make some kind of strap and go over the top. Okay, cut 3 slots at the side of the wall on each side. That's for strapping, fire engine strapping. Still a bit about this lid. I'm still sort of contemplating it at the moment. I don't know how I'm going to latch it down. I haven't got anything to do that with. Ideally the whole battery could do with being latched, but with the strap going across instead of it being on the inside. I say it could go on the inside. That actually isn't an issue. It could. Having a steel lid though, maybe I should just build a fibre one or a wooden one. I don't know. I don't know what to do about it, to be honest with you. It'd be nice to have an alley one. So now we've got to put 2 blocks on the back so I can somehow bolt this to the side of the wall. And I won't lie, I haven't figured that bit out yet, because I've got box steel on that wall instead of angle iron. Had I used C-section or doubled up the angle, I could have run a bolt straight through. I don't feel safe enough putting those pop nuts in, but it is looking like that's what I'm going to have to do with some shortened bolts or something. I've got quite a few of them, so it's not like I ain't got many. I just don't like using them that much. Is this tray coming out? Not really. That can stay there. I'm going to paint it all up before I bolt it in, and then once I've painted up, we'll bolt it in, and we'll chuck the battery in it once I've charged the battery up, and then we'll strap the battery down, and then we'll feed all the wires to where they need to go. This is kind of the best my thing can go. So instead of putting it on the wall where it can get slammed around from hitting stuff, I decided to put it through the floor instead. Don't get me wrong, this is quite crude, but I'm hoping it will be very effective. Put the straps on yesterday through those 3 holes, started off at the bottom, wound through that one, came through that one, and then wound it back through the bottom again, and then we're cable tied just to stop the thing from coming undone. We have the adjustments up here. I'm hoping that that will be strong enough to do what it needs to do. I really need to put a flame in. We drill another 4 holes and try and mount it to this, but I have my concerns because it's thin, flimsy. I think it's going to move around, so we either have to bolt it to the frame here, or we put some struts underneath. I'm not quite sure how I would go about bolting it to the frame, to be honest. Oh, I tell you, that battery, it ain't light. Okay, is this going to be a problem? Possible. Will I have to put an extra plate somewhere? Probably. Am I going to do it straight away? Definitely not. Whew. Now I pulled it away from the wall because I was a bit concerned that if I have a, I don't know, off-roading accident, I've got room. But now that you can see the flexing in that, yeah, I think we're going to have to anyway. Unless I go through this bit here into there and weld a nut, take them all off, weld a nut, but it only stops that side from wobbling. We've still got this side. I don't know, we'll see if that's a problem later on. Right, next week, because this is the end now, I've got to get some editing done. Next week we will get the washer bottle fitted but not plumbed in. I'm just looking at everything. We've got to get the expansion bottle put in, we've got the clutch to fix, and we've got to readdress them brakes because I'm pretty sure they're stuck solid. Something's going on somewhere. There's no vacuum going through obviously, but there's just nothing there, no movement, nothing. And I can't push it, so that's telling me something's jammed up. It could be the handbrake's jammed up, but we'll have to go through the brakes, see what's going on. But what I'll do is I'll loosen the master cylinder off, take the pressure off that, and see if she's got a little bit of movement. And if it hasn't, then we know the brakes are solid, or I've built something wrong. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not the same base plate anymore and pedals, so I had to do some alterations. Fuel tank, we need to address that. I mean, I could put that in as it is, but that fuel tank was designed by the looks of things to go in a vehicle of some description, I believe, that way. I do not know what the hell this thing is off. I mean, you tell me guys if you think I have the theory right, because this being halfway on its side just don't feel right. So we've got some major moddies to do on that. I've got to find either some old catering trays that I can weld on to expand its capacity, or an old kitchen sink, which I really would like the catering trays, to be honest. I'll try and find some from somewhere. Loads on eBay. That's got to be cut off. They've got to be blanked off. And the hole for the sender unit, well, I've got some steel left over from that, which is quite chunky stuff. So we'll make up a template and put a cover plate over it with some rubber. And we'll lock that in. Normally I'd use stainless steel, but you can't get a good grip on those sometimes, so I'll just use some normal nuts and bolts to screw that bugger in, and then we'll lift that, put an angle iron across there because we haven't done that yet, and then we'll set the tank in, and then we'll start thinking about the filler. Once we've got that done, we can then start looking at fuel pump, fuel filter, fuel lines, plumbing into the engine bay, and hopefully at that point we will have the water done, and we can blink and well move it from here up there. Then we can start the roll cage, the windscreens, that last bit of quarter panel, and I've decided September is going to be the time when I put paint on this, for definite. I will not be doing that through the summer holidays. I will just be doing the wiring and the tinkering and stuff. Paint will have to be September. I'm going to put a gazebo up anyway. I may roll it on. Mate of mine around the corner, he rolled some bed liner on a van, and that came out quite good. So I may very well roll it on and go from there, really. He had better coverage. I sprayed that back door and I didn't get very good coverage. Quite bad actually, if I'm honest. Patchy. at the bottom. You can see there's lighter there than it is anywhere else. So I was going to go over that with a rattle can of Boston to try and even it all out. I think rolling that paint on might be a better option. Unfortunately, I'm not going down that road. So yeah, look, I'd like to say thanks very much for your likes. I apologise for the last couple of weeks. We had problems, and I can't go into it. I generally can't. I haven't done anything wrong, and I will hold my hand up on that one. I'm not a religious man, but I'd even put it on the damn Bible. I have done nothing wrong. All I can say is it's been a 22-year feud. It came to head the other day, a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, we'll see you next week. I've also got a side project I might do as well. Hang on. I want an air compressor in this thing. Where are we? I picked it up. It's down here, look. It's a 240 volt compressor, came out of a fire engine. I'm assuming it's to keep the suspension topped up when parked. I'm also assuming it's to operate the air controlled light mast. Pick that up, but I haven't got a power source for that. I want air horns and I want capabilities to pump tyres up. Maybe even run air tools if I can. You can't do that with DIY Chinese compressors. They're just rubbish, as some of you might know. They're really bad. But I do have this hydraulic pack. I've got to replace the bearings in that motor, but I have a motor. And what I was thinking of doing was, it depends on how that motor's set up. But if there's a shaft sticking out, I'm hoping there is, I was going to cut a piece of this off, this steel here, look, and machine a tube with Allen keys, and I was going to strip, I'm going to keep the motor on this because I need to, but I was going to strip all the guts of that electric motor out, so I'm just left with the shaft and the two bearing ends. And I was going to attempt to put a coupling device from the hydraulic pump motor to this, because that hydraulic pump motor is built for stuff like this. I mean, if it's pumping fluid through at a high rate of PSI, then it should have the torque to pump air into a tank. Even if I just get 60 PSI, I'll be happy. Won't be able to run tools off it, but I will be able to run air horns and pump tyres up without the risk of that pump seizing up. I've got two Chinese ones, and I only had it on the trike, one of them, for about a couple of months, and the reeds on the head of the pump are already knackered up. Terrible things, and they are the expensive of the two as well, type pumps that are out there. So there you go, one battery tray. More work to do next week. We are getting through it very slowly. I've cut my hours down on a day, something I agreed to with the local councillor. I didn't have to, that was me volunteering it. But I've extended me hours during the week, so instead of packing up on a Friday for all the hours that I've lost during the week, I now work on a Friday. Had they left me alone, I would have packed up on a Friday and they'd have had Friday, Saturdays and Sundays. Right, so that's the end of this video. I'll see you next week, people. Bye bye.